Hello, hello. Okay, I thought I was gonna do just like I said, sing goodbye until I know my stream is saying hello until the first chat came through that acknowledged my existence. I wish you guys would just acknowledge. Hi. I heard somebody, or I heard y'all talking. I hear you. I saw somebody say the hate mob's here. That's exciting. Is that because Trisha is going to the Gabby side? Zing. Do they love Trisha now? I'm so sorry to my followers who are pro Trisha because this one, ugh, when it comes to this situation, ugh, that's all I have to say is ugh. I outdo myself every week. Oh, it's because I'm thinking about that. Because every week I'm like, how do I go bigger? Okay. Oh, from Edwin's side, that is the weakest hate mob. You can't even give them the name mob. That's like a, they're the new ankle biters. That's just like a, not even a classroom, a timeout section from pre-K school. I'm not worried about them whatsoever. Invite them. Give me the views. Give me all 23 views. Hi. So let me pull up before I get sidetracked because I love just chatting with you guys and getting sidetracked. I wanted to, you know, if you've been here before, or if you've been here recently, then you know that I'm trying to infuse a bit of organization, structure into this conversation without taking away from the beauty that is it. I'm realizing I'm looking at myself and I'm realizing for the first time ever, I'm so dumb, that this image is flipped. And it's reminding me of if any of you guys are H3 viewers, they're like, hey, Triller, my thing is flipped. Oh, it's so awkward. I'm realizing that my image is flipped, but is it flipped for you guys? I want to know. Because I'm looking right over there at the fashion box and I'm realizing it's backwards. So, Um, so awkward. Okay. But I do want to start before almost three minutes in. Well, if you're here, if you're paying attention to me, and if you're at all happy to be here, if you could please take a minute to like the video. I want to kind of remind you guys to do that if you're interested in doing that here and there. And I feel like at the beginning of the video is a good time because that's when we're kind of like on. And just as kind of a bit of information, I used to not think to like and dislike videos for a really long time, even after I started making my own videos. But it wasn't until sometime in the past 6 months or so that I started to do it more often. And then now I'm like, every time I'm watching a video, I try to think of it. And if it's somebody that I even feel neutral about, I want to go ahead and throw a like their way just because it helps. So I appreciate you guys who did and are pressing the like button. Um, See, Hales needs a reminder. I do too, oftentimes. So thank you guys for that. You just got the notification 3 minutes later. Ah, well, at least you got it because we know that YouTube is not the best about notifications. But yeah, I want to make it a habit to tell you guys at the very beginning of every video what we're going to be talking about because there are people, particularly those people who come to playback, who click on and they're just like, what the hell is this video about? So last week we talked about the drama leading up to the podcast that is Trisha Paytas on Keemstar's podcast, Mom's Basement. And I say Keemstar's, it's Keemstar with FaZe Banks. And we really talked last week just about not the podcast itself because it wasn't out yet, but really kind of like the optics perspective of it all. I remember, and of course, this is me focusing a little bit more on my opinion. There were a lot of opinions all over the place, but I thought it was a bad move. It was a really bad look. I felt that it was really disrespectful to Ethan, but. And also the really, really big one for me too, maybe even more so than that, is that Keemstar being one of the creators that I just dislike the most heartily on the platform, just in general for so many reasons. just the fact that Trisha was offering a signal boost to Keem, because we know that Trisha brings views, and so that was just bad. But we kind of suspended our judgment of the podcast itself because we didn't know what was going to be said. And at that time, we were only getting kind of like, the chitter chatter around the just the prospect of Trisha going on the podcast. And they gave us videos and TikToks where they talked about why they were going on the podcast. Things like, I like to approach people, when I have conversations to have with them. And I'd been, criticizing Keem, particularly about his relationship with this new young woman, which, if you didn't know, I saw Keem's tweet today that they are now broken up. So now ex-girlfriend. But there was part of me that was like, okay, Trisha, this is just a bad idea altogether. But I'm not going to judge you for what the podcast says until I know what the podcast says. And I'm going to try to trust that you are being honest with us, that, and because we've seen you be pretty, like, stick to your guns and be pretty hard nosed with certain people that you disagree with. This was me having a whole conversation in my head with Trisha Paytas that I didn't have with them. But thinking like, Trisha kind of like held to their guns on Gabby's podcast, and we know that they can be bold enough to stick to their word, to their opinions. And so I hoped that Trisha going on this podcast would be really them calling out Keem and really holding to that. And so just so you guys know, this week's video, which, if all goes as planned, will be live premiered tomorrow night, probably around 8 or 9 p.m. per usual. And that's where I'll be talking about the actual contents of the podcast. So since you're here, I like to give you guys a bit of a spoiler, or at least let you guys know what the video is about. And the spoiler is just that the podcast was not good. So I don't want to talk so much about the podcast and what was said on it, but more focus now on the drama afterwards. So, everything that's gone down between Trisha and camp, and then Ethan in camp, basically. So, let's see. Also, I feel like I have an eyelash falling off. Don't you hate it when you can see an eyelash in your periphery? ABX says, thank you, Leash, for doing it, because I will not give Keem the view to watch it. Good. Good, because I really did break it down. Almost every single point that they talked about, I talked about. And I will be providing clips. So, yeah. So for today's BAP, there were text messages, of course, that were alluded to, as of last week when we talked about this, sent to Moses, Trisha's fiance, by Ethan's mom, Donna. And of course, there were some tweets by both of Ethan's parents. It looks like Moses and Hila have unfollowed each other on social media. Ethan showed us that he blocked Trisha on Twitter, and essentially said in a few podcasts that he's done with Trisha, and that he's no longer really wants to talk to them. And then also, on the flip side, Trisha has released a video saying that they are not interested in doing the Enemies podcast anymore, and they're not interested in being in drama anymore. So that's more or less what we will be talking about. Let's see. And just to give you guys a little BAP preamble, I'm going to try to shorten these down a little bit. But just, if you are popping in and don't know what's going on here, or if you're watching this in the playback, this is a weekly public live event that is held on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Love it when you guys show up and have this conversation with me. So this is a conversation with my audience. So just like a conversation, expect there to be tangents and disjointed thoughts, as well as some eyeliner in my thumbnail, because that's, par for the course when we're having a conversation with me. But a couple of things to keep in mind too, that on my channel, when it comes to any sort of live event, there's a live chat. And I have really kind of instilled a rule on this channel that makes me quite happy, which is we are going to keep this chat a good time. A lot of you show up, and I was thinking about this earlier, and I just want to take a moment to gush a little bit. Some of you guys come here, and this is something you look forward to during your week. And I don't know what I've done to deserve that level of honor. I don't want to sound like I'm like blowing smoke up your butts, but I don't it's me. Why are people looking forward to a conversation with me? But it's so flattering. And so I want to make sure that for the people who are here to enjoy conversation, it doesn't mean that we have to agree. Absolutely not. But if you're here to enjoy this conversation with me and with each other, and with this topic, then I and my moderators. Thank you, mods. Hey, mods. Hello, wrenches. You guys are awesome, amazing, wonderful, helpful people. I've given mods instruction to do whatever we need to do to keep the chat friendly. So if you want to express something that's dissenting or disdainful or anything that starts with dis, then, or not necessarily, but you can feel free to take that to the comments, because if you are engaging in the chat with the chat in a way that's less than friendly or respectful, or just kind of like honestly kills the vibe, you're going to be out. I myself had to boot somebody towards the end of the conversation last time because they were just stressing people out. And guess what? There's no rule that says that we have to allow people to enter our homes and just cause negative energy for our guests. And that's who you guys are. That's what you guys are to me. So, so yes, mods, you have my permission to do whatever that takes, and I appreciate you for it. Thank you. So that, of course, all of that little preamble was for those of you who are watching and engaging on YouTube. Of course, we're on all podcast streaming platforms, so you may be watching this on your platform of choice. If you could please follow me, if you haven't, that would be amazing, awesome. If you could leave me a nice review if you've got a moment, that would be really awesome too. Super helpful. I'd love to see how we can branch out on these different platforms. So yeah, this is basically a podcast. So Jane Davis says, "Thank you, Mama Leash." Yeah, I mean, let's take a moment to chat about that. I feel like there's a lot of rhetoric on the internet. We often talk about creators that block people from their social medias, from their channels, and that's not something that I've ever really taken issue with. And I would challenge you guys to consider how you view that. Um, and I'll just go ahead and bring this up now. So, as also kind of an update on my life, I am going to be on the Bold Bitch podcast. I don't know if anybody here has ever heard of the Bold Bitch podcast. If you have, maybe you could just like let the chat know. But it is run by a really, really, really awesome lady by the name of Gia Goodrich, who is just somebody that I makes really informative content for like I think the video that caught my attention of hers was something like how to look your best on Zoom or something like that. Good lighting for Zoom. She's a photographer, so she's got videos on how to like pose in pictures and stuff like that. So I found her content to be very informative and really helpful. Super helpful, in fact, that we connected over a recent video where I was trying to really understand the analytics around a certain video, and she just happened to post a video that was about that. So we connected, and she invited me to come on her podcast. So that's coming. Can I post it in community tab? Absolutely. I will be promoting it once it's ready. This won't be for another almost a month. Um, but yeah, that's what I did here recently. And one thing that we talked about that Gia brought up was that she brought up what I had some things that I had said in videos about the block feature and drawing boundaries for yourself. And so thank you to those of you who are saying you're excited. Gia agreed with me that features like the block feature are ones that we should use more liberally in order to enforce boundaries for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that. you know, there's nothing wrong on an individual level with removing lines of communication that upset you or put a damper on your existence or those around you or whatever your reason is. So, um, so that said, I also think that there is a good bit of rhetoric online around creators blocking viewers, audience members. And while there can be conversations around just how silly it might be for, as an example, not thinking anyone in particular, I'm being sarcastic, but if you are a decently known creator and you go out of your way to find a small creator's tweets about you that don't even at you, and you comment coward and then block that person, and they have no idea until they go and they're recording a video about the whole situation. They see that they're blocked. That's laugh worthy. I'm gonna laugh at that. But at the same time, it's not inherently wrong. I don't think of the creator to block somebody for, even if they just don't like what the person's saying about them. So, but yeah, I think that sometimes I hear a lot of language like, "Oh, we're being silenced," or "So and so is silencing so and so," and it's like, there's such thing as free speech, but you don't necessarily need to honor free speech in your home. It's probably not the best way to put it, but you have the right, and the responsibility to yourself to preserve what I refer to as your home, my home. So that can mean the text messages coming into your phone. That could mean the live streams that you do on your channel or literally, quite literally in your home, or just what you allow to take up space in your mind. We always, reference the saying like to live rent free in your mind. Yeah, these people and their opinions are living rent free in our minds. We have every right and responsibility to filter what comes and goes or siphon those thoughts to where they belong. And so here I'm saying if you got something like kind of mean or nasty or just negative or just to say, fine, I welcome that, but please take it to the comments. And so I would just encourage all of you guys, or those of you who may be struggling with that, to just think about it. Think about things in that frame a little more, so that you can learn how to, like I said, so kind of like siphon that energy properly. I don't want to sound like I'm talking down to you guys. Now I'm like, what do you think you're doing? Telling your audience what they should do. I don't know. Is that what this channel is about? I see that I got water ganked. Thank you, Kim. Okay. So the lip color. Oh, dang. I don't know this one off the top of my head. It's not going to matter because I doubt you'll find it. It's a really old lipstick that I got, I think at Forever 21, which they had decent makeup for a while. But it's an old, just a red lipstick that I found, but also sometimes Trick. I don't like the feeling of lipstick, like unless it's matte, I guess, but then I don't like the liquid lipsticks that just don't come off. So what I'll oftentimes do is I'll pat my lipstick with an eyeshadow that matches the color. So, so the base it's all already coming off, but the base is a red lipstick from just a standard darker red from Forever 21. But then there's a palette, a gorgeous palette. Maybe I'll have to bring it on camera on next week's episode. But there is a palette that I got at Target that is like super colorful, and I've been looking for a really colorful palette that just has like every color of the rainbow. So I found a red in there. Yeah, try that trick if you're like me and you don't like I really hate the feeling of lipstick altogether. I hate the feeling of shoes, and I'm wearing boots right now, but it's all for in the name of fashion, baby. So let's talk about fashion for a moment. Audio description for the listeners. I wonder how you guys would describe this dress, because it is funky. It is funky for sure. It's got all kinds of, I would say maybe like peacock inspired, like wispy designs. It's got a lot of blue. It's white, but it's also got like a lot of blue designs, some red. And in terms of the shape, I realize very similar to last week's dress, I think. kind of with the bell sleeves and then like the shorter hemline, not super short, but short-ish. But just very much, I would say, whereas that one was like summer sweetheart kind of vibe, this is more mod vibes, which is very much me. That said, guess who's on Depop these days? Finally, your girl's on Depop, and I finally listed this dress. Even though every time I put on one of these dresses, almost, I didn't really love the one that showed my the where I should have a troll belly button jewel, but that was a few episodes ago. It looked great on camera. Um, but I love this dress and I might want to wear it again. But I told myself, you know what, you need to start getting rid of these dresses and then just buy it again if I really decide that I miss it a lot. Um, but yeah, I've been telling you guys that I was going to list these outfits on Depop soon. And so I did it. So you can now go ahead and find me on Depop. Guess what my username is there? Yes, it's Hello Leash. Go find me there, and you can buy this dress, but it's also in the link, in a link in the description if you want to just buy it new for yourself. So there's that. Lauren, I mean, you're not super late in that we haven't really gotten into the meat of the discussion. So, trigger warnings. Yeah, as far as trigger warnings, of course, with these conversations, it's not scripted and we don't know exactly what's going to come up. But there will likely be mention of loss of pregnancy or pregnancy complications, maybe bullying. I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head that we might need to be mindful of. Thank you, Audie, for complimenting my makeup. I struggled with the makeup today. It's one of those days, where you like you get your base on and you do this whole thing with your eyes and you're like, no, I hate it. Take it all off and start all over again. Let's see. Another thing that I want to remind you guys too, is that I mean, I've already alluded to not having positive opinions about this situation, particularly about Trisha Paytas' decisions to go on this podcast, what they said on the podcast, how they've behaved around the podcast. That does not have any bearing on whether or not we respect someone's pronouns. So just as a reminder to you guys and to myself, we all have to keep each other in check. We all have to correct each other gently and accept the correction. But Trisha uses they, them pronouns. I won't care to hear the argument about she, her being on their profiles because that is reserved for family and friends. As just kind of a broader point, the way I put it is that respect for one person's pronouns is respect for all people's pronouns, in particular, in this case, all non-binary people's pronouns. And it's really important to us and to this community that these people be seen for exactly what they are and don't see that people will lay such disrespect over their identity because of a lack of respect for the person. It's not how it works here. So, if somebody corrects you, please just thank them. Oops. I feel stupid when it happens to me, but it's good. It's good to be corrected and just accept it. And if not, then if you get combative over it, it's probably not gonna your time in the chat. Well, it might be limited on this one, but just take it and move on. So let's see. I'm going to check to see if we've got any super chats to start. I saw a couple. Okay, we had a couple that come through. So hello, Phoenix Light. Thank you for the €5. Is that five? No, £5. Americans, we're so smart about this stuff. Phoenix Light says, I think Donna's message went too far. Ethan can't handle criticism. Trisha is just a vile opportunist and Moses is weak. Phoenix Light has something to say about everything. Has something to say about everyone. Hila seemingly stays out of it. I have to say, like, my assessment of these situations is pretty similar to yours. Amanda Joe, hey Amanda, says BAP feels like listening to my BFF ramble, for lack of a better word, about something she's super interested in. Your voice and presence are so calming, heart. Thank you, Amanda. I love that I have all of you BFFs to let me ramble. I really appreciate that. God, this YouTube has been a godsend in terms of just what it allows me to do in terms of just talking, expressing myself, and getting my thoughts out into the universe. And I would say without consequence, but of course there are consequences. But just in general, I don't have to apologize about wanting to talk. So there's that. Um, so let's see here. And to Phoenix Light's point, let's get a little synopsis of what some things that were going on around this situation. Um, some notes that we have here. Thank you to the producers. We have a note that I did mention that Ethan's mom. Let's talk about the text that Ethan's mom sent. Trisha was alluding to this really nasty text message that Donna sent to Moses. And they were very elusive in terms of what the message said. They said that it was just so vile and scummy that they weren't comfortable even like speaking, quote unquote, speaking these words into existence. However, the Families podcast, the most recent one, I believe, was one that the title was just around what Donna sent to Trisha, or specifically to Moses. But essentially, Donna, Ethan's mom, texted Moses something along the lines of, if Hila miscarries with this pregnancy, I am holding you and Trisha personally responsible. And we saw a very emotional reaction on Trisha's part, or kind of like when Trisha was talking about this. I was a little bit relieved to hear Ethan kind of speak to this and say that, like, I didn't know that my mom sent that. As soon as she sent that, I thought, what are you doing? My parents don't know what they're doing on Twitter. It doesn't make everything right. But last week, I was just like, my frustration with Ethan was like, get a handle on your parents and the things that they're saying online. This is not good. This is a bad look for you guys, not on anyone else. So to hear Ethan say that, he didn't exactly co-sign these things, there was a little bit of relief in that for me personally. But I very much have seen Moses stick by Trisha's side. I do believe I might have some tweets to read from Moses's account. He's very much on Trisha's side. I don't know if I want to get into that like right now. Let me just finish giving you guys a little synopsis here. And yeah, he and Hila are mutually unfollowed on social media. I mentioned that Ethan has said that he's done with Trisha, blocked them on social media, or at least on Twitter, no longer talking about them. And then Trisha, of course, said that they are no longer involving themselves in drama, which is not a realistic promise to keep, but maybe for the time being is the case. But a couple of other things. Some notes from the producers is that Trisha still follows H3 and Gary. I'm assuming this is on Twitter. Moses still follows Donna, Gary, H3, and AB. And Donna follows Moses. Hila and Moses do not follow each other. So I got thoughts. But I wonder, too, if some of those are just, they haven't thought to unfollow those accounts, I wonder. We'll see. I will say the first thing that comes to mind, the only thing I can really think about right now, is what makes me sad about this whole situation. There are two things that I think are more important than what is being spoken about primarily around the situation. So, to include this group, this community, and what we've been talking about. We've been talking a lot about the actual podcast that Trisha went on. What they said about Ethan, how much they talked about Ethan, what the implications are for Keemstar and any sort of cosign on Keemstar and his points of view, giving him views, boosting his business, all of that. But what I think is more important that is not being focused on quite enough, but is it's something we're still thinking about, is what this means for Hila's pregnancy, and what this means for the relationship between Hila and Moses. So, and I think that both of those things that kind of like bother me when I think about all this are really being affected by more than just this situation with the podcast. So, this is me taking a moment to try to like organize my thoughts. Hey, something I forgot to tell you about what's going on in my life just because I'm excited about this. I don't know if I think I mentioned this to patrons that I got an anxiety ring. I don't know if you can see right here. Hold on. Sorry to the listeners. It's like a fidget spinner, but on one finger. Can you see it spinning right there? Every now and then I'll move. I forget it's on my hand and I'll move and I can feel it spinning and it feels nice. Um, so let me just kind of tell you right out the gate as far as this podcast goes. I don't want to share too much because, like I said, the video that's coming to you guys most likely tomorrow really details my thoughts on what was discussed on the podcast, on Keemstar's podcast, Mom's Basement. But for the most part, it was a lot of this group of people talking about Ethan Klein, like a lot, like most of the time. It was a 38-minute podcast. They probably spent 30 minutes talking about Ethan. And it was not a lot of Trisha really like sticking to their guns when it comes to the things that they claimed they wanted to confront Keemstar about. So that was unfortunate. I really kind of hoped that it wouldn't be what it is. So there's that. Um, that said, I do like forgive me to the radical thinkers that are not going to like to hear any nonsense. Only come to this podcast if you want to hear nonsense, if you want to hear nuance, and if you want to hear me be critical of both sides. Sorry, you're almost always going to get that here. So, especially when we're dealing with people like Trisha and Ethan. Come on, let's be real, okay? But yeah, so the podcast, that was a shit show. But and then now we know about the text message that Donna sent to Trisha. Trisha made a decent point, I think. And I would highly recommend going and watching Petty Page's live stream from a few nights ago. I think it was like Sunday night or something like that. Not just because she says some really nice, flattering things about me and having a girl crush on me, which I absolutely recorded and put on a new trailer on my channel. So go open up a tab and check that out when you get a chance. I added a trailer on my channel of just other channels talking about me. But Paige had some thoughts around this too, and I love her so much. She or at the very least, like I feel like we think along the same lines. And I love that she's able to engage with her chat and say, okay, this is my opinion. Like Trisha was right about this and Ethan was wrong about this. And then somebody will bring up some new information and then she'll be like, good point though. So yeah, like maybe Trisha isn't right about this, or maybe Ethan's right about this, or Ethan's not right about this. I like that about her. And I don't know that that the audience is that forgiving of that in her either. So the fact that she's willing to do it is something that I highly respect. So one thing that came up during that live stream that I agree with was a point that Trisha made, saying that well, first the point that they made was really that, and this is where we're talking about complications with pregnancies, that according to Trisha and what facts they were bringing to the table, something about most miscarriages are due to some sort of defect with the fetus or something like that. But with the zygote, I guess maybe sometimes that's the state that I'm taking it back to high school biology. I don't think we need to do that. Um, but basically saying just like defects that we're never going to really kind of like survive the term of the pregnancy. But the topic of kind of like stress impacting a pregnancy did come up. And while acknowledging, I think the potential that this situation around this podcast might be, providing undue stress onto Hila during this pregnancy, that I think the doctors believe they started off with having almost or potentially having triplets. Then, if I'm not mistaken, it was determined that they were having twins. And then, as far as I know, it's down where they're at a singular birth right now. A singular. They're having one baby. I don't know all the proper medical terms. Um, and so I'm sure that to some extent there is for some people in this family just stress, because these are also people who have I have I only smirked because of a joke between me and my mom, totally, like, not related to anything I'm about to say. But they've been Ethan and Hila have been trying, and we know that a lot of the people in this conversation are people who have difficulty getting pregnant. And so Hila is one of them and Trisha is one of them. And there is a big question as to whether Trisha may be jealous of Hila, or perhaps Trisha may be more sympathetic towards Hila because of this. And it's also possible that both are possible. Um, but the point that Trisha brought up, and I cannot help but agree with, is that if they are responsible for putting enough stress on Hila to impact her pregnancy by going on Keemstar's podcast, shouldn't Ethan be held to the same standard, considering how much he engages not only in this drama, but in situations that are like what's going on with Triller, with Ryan Kavanaugh of Triller, and how much he like trolls the guy who is suing them and is now suing like all of the podcasts and businesses linked to him, to include Teddy Fresh, which is Hila's business. So I have to agree that that is a fair point. I'm a YouTube commentator and a consumer of YouTube drama. And so, and I'm a fan of Ethan Klein and the H3 podcast. So to some degree, I do enjoy when Ethan gets petty, because I would say that's kind of how he gets. He doesn't typically cross too many boundaries, but he does have a good time like trolling the people who don't like him. And he does a damn good job of it. But I also noticed too that Ethan will pursue what is going to be successful, and he hasn't been shy about being honest about that. But then it kind of makes me wonder, like, at what point is enough, or at what point is it like, okay, this is now is just not the time for this. As much as the audience might love it, is this what's best for the family? Is this what's best for my wife and our the baby that is to come? So it's complicated. I listened to Donna, Ethan's mom. I'm totally just like blocking my face. Hey guys. You guys, who knows, this could be pre-recorded, you don't even know. Sorry, let me move over here a little bit more. um I struggle because I like Ethan's parents, but then do I like Gary? God, he's a dad. Dads can be tough, especially much people who are older. They're gonna say shit that just most of us wouldn't say today. Gary Klein, Ethan's father, has made some very distasteful remarks towards Trisha that most of us would agree are not okay to say to anyone, just like along the lines of like body shaming and such. Um, Donna, on the other hand, made this remark. She also said some things like, "Oh, she is such a weasel," or something like that. Um, "Can't wait to go to her wedding." Not like things like that. Sorry, guys. I see my phone popping off, and I just want to make sure it's not my producers. Um, Sorry, guys. If Hey producers, if you need me, maybe just if you guys wouldn't mind just starting a new chat, but I think you maybe are talking about me. Let's Are talking to me. Um, let's see. It says, the camera is going out of focus when I move my hands. Try to put your hands down. Yeah, I know. That's how I talk. Some more information regarding Hila's pregnancy. The thing about potentially having multiples was because her HCG level was high and suggested it was twins, but I don't believe she was pregnant with multiples, not certain. Thank you for that note, producer Leaf. Um, The text was, okay. I think thank you guys for those notes. See, I just had a feeling that there might have been, can you see my eyelashes just like straight falling off of my eyeball? I hate that. Um, where was I with all this? Yeah, the text message was from a little while back from one of the, frenemies fallouts. The tweets, the misgendering Trisha, but saying like Trisha's such a weasel and can't wait to go to their wedding. Not like moms being older moms being clever. Um, and then of course the body shaming tweets that I don't even want to repeat from Gary Klein. Um, but Donna did go on to explain, like I said, on the Families podcast about kind of like why they said what they said. And the thing is, every time somebody expresses their opinion, I see where people are coming from. Somebody said, I don't remember where they left this comment, but it was in regards to the last BAP that, like one person said, everybody's making a big deal out of something that this isn't that big of a deal. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. This really shouldn't be that big of a deal. And then somebody else was saying, well, Donna has every right to be protective over that baby because that is her grandchild. And I agree with that too. There was a lot of conversation too about like, especially with the wedding remark, like this isn't family to Donna. It's in-laws of in-laws. And then Donna kind of defended that and gave the Yiddish word for like in-laws or like extended family and kind of presented it as a concept that is, I guess, common in Jewish families. And I'm not saying that it's not. I don't think that it's uncommon for family of family to be somewhat involved in most cultures. But I just think that there are just much better ways to say the things that you need to say. One of the things that Donna said, she read off this text message and then she didn't sound like she was reading verbatim, but she did say like, "I'm gonna hold you personally accountable for this. Cut it out. Just stop already." And the thing is that last sentiment, I think, is just where she should have left it. And that sentiment should have been quite frankly, if I were in mom mode, which I'm not a mom, but I'm a big sister. If I were Donna, if I could be Donna in that situation, I would direct that at my own child. And so there's this whole thing where it's like I understand you're protective of your child. Your child is going through a situation where they're, quote unquote beefing with somebody. You want to take your child's side. And that's great. That's lovely. That's beautiful that you're protective of your own child. At the same time, and I know there are mothers in this chat, at the at the same time, is this a situation where you hold your own child accountable? I would think, that you could do both. And so, it takes two to tango, as a small YouTuber let me know recently. It takes two to tango. And with Ethan and Trisha going back and forth, like I complained about this last week. I was just like, when does somebody decide just to be the bigger person? I was sick of it, honestly. And so at that point, like I don't agree with reaching out to family of your partner or like past certain degrees directly. But if you're going to do that, you got to say the same to your son, is what I have to say. And you can even say, I am concerned about undue stress on Hila during her pregnancy. We've said the same thing about Jessie Smiles. And in fact, I think it was also during Paige's live stream that somebody pointed out that, and I don't know if this is fact because I don't remember it exactly, but I know that Trisha has been very supportive of Jessie Smiles through a lot of the situations with Gabby this year. And somebody pointed out that Trisha did say something about, Gabby potentially causing stress that might create complications for Jessie's pregnancy. I don't remember that directly, but I believe it happened, possibly. I know that I have made remarks. I think people are referring more just to people saying, like, stop it. Jessie's pregnant. And I know for me, when I've said it, it's not so much like, oh, you're going to cause something to happen, something bad to happen, but it's more like, can we just allow Jessie to enjoy this pregnancy. That's what I was concerned about. Just allow her to enjoy it. And the same goes for Hila. With this situation with Trisha and Ethan, even taking that away, she still has to deal with the fact that she and her husband are both being sued by Triller and their parent company. So, I think people are pretending to care for Hila less than they're actually caring for her. So that's my hot take. But let's talk a little bit more about Hila and Moses in a second. I'm going to check because I've seen a few super chats come in. I want to say hi to you guys. Oh my gosh, you guys. You guys are being so generous. So Coda, thank you for the $9.99 donation. Says, as a cis woman dating a cis man, we only refer to each other as our partner, they, them, unless we're talking to people close to us. It's a matter of privacy and keeping others out of our business. Thank you for that perspective. I've noticed that, some people do choose to use gendered terms for their partners, and some people just say my partner. And I'm sure people have their various reasons why. And I think that's just a really good example of like people have their right to decide what sorts of pronouns they use in whatever context or without whichever family members or friends or acquaintances, strangers, just people in general. That's every person's decision to make for themselves. And it is our job to do nothing but respect that, regardless of what we think of the person. So thank you for that input, Coda. Megan Davis. Hello, Megan. Says, I really wish Trisha, Ethan, etc. would just stop posting publicly about each other. They're making this feud so much worse and ruining their family. I agree. Because even when they say they're done, are they really? Like there was a I, Ethan put out an H3 podcast called Not Talking About Trisha Paytas. And I watched that, and on one hand, I'm like, is this you? Like, is this maybe like you holding yourself accountable? Is that why you put this as the whole title? Or is this in a way, and it could be both, in a way, is this you like perpetuating the drama by putting their name in the title? Like, just cut it out, you guys. Like, I feel like part of me thinks that for both parties, it does come down to like views because they both know that, the drama machine does generate views and money and all of that. I think that that is the case with both of them, that they both talked about, wanting to capitalize on situations. But if we're getting to the point where people are concerning or are concerned with or pretending to be concerned with Hila's pregnancy, that's where that's more important. That's way more important than how successful this might be or how relevant it might keep you. So it's a bit of a tangent. Hey, Blue. Blue said, it's wild to me that Trish kept saying, wait till you guys see the podcast. And then when it came out, it was just 30 minutes of them trashing Ethan. Agreed. I'll share more of my opinions on that in the video coming up. But agreed. Like, it was everything we hoped it would not be. So that was a disappointment, to say the least. Seven says, hello, Leash. I love you like a sister, but Fat Sajak is my reason for existing. Could you give me any advice on how to land her as my wife? I so appreciate you paying to ask me that question. I am so sorry that my answer is simply no, because Fat Sajak and I are already committed to each other. So my only advice might be to like hang tight till I'm gone. and then strike as fast as possible. But I know a lot of people have their eyes on that one. Maria says, you are such a sweet soul. Heart, it radiates. Thank you. It was just sweet. Thank you. Skinny Z says, I think Elon Moses could have ended this a long time ago. This could have all been prevented if everyone got together behind the scenes. Yeah, I do want to talk about them some more after this super chat break, but the contention between Hila and Moses really, it breaks my heart. And I want to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Let's see. Neely says, Alicia, I also love you like a sister. My loyalty is only highlighted in my willingness to endure Fat Sajak in these lives. Fair. We know how you two exist in these chats. I'm sure this provides a lot of entertainment for the live chat. Fat Sajak says Neely is obsessed with Gilmore Girls. Then let's see. And then it says all oh, and another one from 7 that says, "Fat say Jack, I will be your fetus, Nayli. If you are reading this, I wouldn't say no." What is going on with you guys? Alistair says, "Hello, Alicia. Sorry I'm late." Don't be sorry. Hey, Alistair. And Alistair also says, "Look, I am late tonight, so this is my take. I agree with Ethan's mom. If something happens with Hila's pregnancy, Trisha would be responsible, as would Keem." Hey, nobody's really talking about Keem's responsibility here, huh? Probably because we keep the bar pretty low for him. Yeah, he sucks. Whitney says Ethan didn't get his inability to admit his wrongdoing from nowhere. Not that he isn't responsible for his own behavior, but Donna has strong, my baby does no wrong vibes. Yeah. Yeah. That's the vibe I'm getting. And it's interesting because I feel like that is kind of a common attitude that, at least when I was teaching, we started to see become kind of a frequent thing, more with people in maybe like the sub generation right before me. I know that kind of when I was still in the generation of people who grew up just kind of a little fucked up, a little messed up by our parents lovingly. Um, and I feel like there was this, and this is all just armchair anthropology, sociology, I don't know what you wanna call it. But I feel like there was a movement maybe like in the '90s or so, and this is not I'm not talking about any of you guys who had kids in the '90s or even any of you who were born in the '90s. I'm just saying that I think that this is something that started to crop up a little, was kind of it was like right after the whole like you can be anything that you want to be attitude. It started to become kind of started to grow into this thing that was more than just my baby can be anything that they want to be, but also my baby can do no wrong. And I was talking on the Bold Bitch podcast. I don't know if this part will be cut out because I know that I can be like I can say things that that are pretty taboo, although that I meant to say that podcast is all about taboo conversations, which is why I was so excited to go on it. But um, it seemed like when I was growing up, and I'm sure like everyone before me, like teachers and parents, I swear I'm tying this back to this conversation. Teachers and parents were like allied to each other. They were in partnership in terms of raising children because of course, teachers are with the children for like 8 hours a day. And so, at least when I was growing up, you didn't upset the teacher because if you got in trouble by the teacher, you get in trouble by your parents too. And so a lot of us grew up not thinking that it's okay to commit cyber crimes, for example. But then around the time that I was student teaching and decided not to pursue teaching after all, much love and Godspeed to all of you guys who have pursued teaching in the past 20 years because it's not easy out there. I mean, it never has been. But around the time that I was student teaching, so that was around 2007 or so, is where there was like a shift was happening to where not all parents, but there were some parents, particularly the more wealthy kids, again, generalizations. I make them sometimes. Deal with it. Take me to sue court if you don't like it. But it seemed like there was this attitude forming with some parents that was like, if you discipline my child, then you are saying that I'm not doing a good job at raising my child. And so instead of parents in partnership with teachers, it was like parents versus teachers. And I remember teachers saying, like, I feel like I can't discipline my students. I feel like I can't do anything I can't even criticize my students. I can't say anything negative about them in their like progress reports or parent teacher conferences. And it just seemed like the people who were in a generation, like I said, a kind of a generation before me, maybe started to get their egos bruised anytime that there was any sort of criticism about the children at all. So that's all to say that as I was talking just now about Donna really kind of like taking Ethan's side, but not holding Ethan accountable, I got the same vibe that you, Whitney, got. Just kind of like my baby can do no wrong, and it was just interesting because certain things factors go into mind. I'm like, were they well to do? They're from California. Like, what factors are coming into play that might cause this? It's could very well just be a personal thing. Now, to be fair, they did raise what appear to be really wonderful children. We've seen enough of Ethan Klein to know that like he's got his flaws and he's made his mistakes, but he's a very, very decent guy. He married Hila Klein, and I have not heard anybody utter anything negative about her unless you're Keemstar. So, they're obviously they're doing great. They appear to be really wonderful parents to their own child. And the clients appear to have children that have good relationships with each other, and they can laugh about, the idiosyncrasies and faults of their parents. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that the parents are without fault. So, Gary's, oh, he's, what is our armchair assessment of Gary Klein? He's just, the part of me is just like, Alicia, don't pick this apart. Just he's older than a boomer, and he's just hard-nosed and a little bit dense to nuance and social cues, and just let it be. Let it be. We've all got dads, we've all got grandpas, we've all got that family member. But gosh, he just what he thinks is funny is generally not funny, and a lot of times it's just mean. Danielle says Gary Klein is kind of trash, but like my dad's trash. So I forget it for it. I was thinking something similar, but not. I wouldn't say that. I would never say that my dad's trash. I was also thinking like my dad also says things that like I would not be proud to have anybody hear him say. And also my dad really like things like just right over his head. I've told you guys he's a very like eccentric and just different kind of person. Um, but that was a funny way to put it. Um, Jessica says Gary has some deep-rooted misogyny or something. For sure. I mean, considering how old they are, they're like late 60s or so. Um, I saw but have you seen pictures of them when they were younger? Ooh, they were a good-looking couple. Holy crap. I mean, Donna is gorgeous still. I mean, sidetrack. Now we're just talking about physical appearance. He was a hunk. A little, like they call him a short king, but they showed a picture of him, I guess, holding Ethan's sister, probably back in like the 70s. And then Donna, she's just beautiful. It's just a side note. She's just gorgeous. I would love to look like that at her age. Sexy old folks. They really are. They really are. Really, really are. Let me see what I've got on this outline. Am I getting sidetracked? Maybe, maybe not. Let's see. Do I have hey producers, do I have any screenshots that I'm supposed to be reviewing? I did want to check in with some of the responses I got on social media. Um, Producers, I am keeping an eye on what you guys have to say to me, but I wanted to pull up what I've started doing, and I'm trying to be in the habit of doing, is throwing the topic of conversation to you guys on social media and allowing you to send your thoughts. So we've got emails, we've got Instagram, questions, and as well as community tab. So just because we saw last week there were so many, there's no way that I can get through all of these every week. But we can take a look at a few things that people wrote in initially on Instagram first. So somebody named Allison said, Trisha was wrong to go on his podcast, no, assuming, Keemstar's podcast, no matter what the circumstances are. He's disgusting. Agreed. Riley says, I think Donna was totally out of line with what she sent to Moses. Trisha drama or not, that's not okay to say. Yeah, I mean, it seems like people are taking it to different levels of severity, and that's just one of those things that you never know how that's going to affect the person you're saying it to. And we can only trust how harshly the person says they take it, because it's just one of those things. It's one of those things you just don't fuck around with topics like that. Alistair says, my opinion on Trisha has worsened, and I stand by what I said. Trisha and Gabby are the same. I still disagree with you. Still love you, Alistair. But yeah, this one's bad. Robin says, I was actually believing in the Trisha redemption arc there for a moment there. Me too, and I really do hope that it comes back, and I'm sure some people are gonna be like, "That means you love Trisha and da da da, we can do whatever." I would love to see a redemption arc for most of these people, and I really think that Trisha was on their way, of course, with the Frenemies podcast, and the numbers reflected that, okay? So people can get mad at me all they want for still recognizing the truth of what was going on during that podcast. For some reason, after the whole 5% debacle, which let's be real, okay? Trisha calling Hila the C word. Trisha storming out on the set like 3 times on camera. Trisha going off on Ethan. All this stuff even leading before the Frenemies podcast. The jokes that they were making about Moses in front of Ethan and Hila, the jokes, sending pictures of their hoo-ha to Ethan. All of this stuff was terrible. But the audience was ready to forgive, and so was I. As long as they were continuing to show growth and the people around them were forgiving of those situations, great. But the 5% debacle happens, and and the frenemies is over, and now like you just get just slayed if you even say at all that maybe like both parties were in the wrong. Just like, oh my goodness, really? Lipline her says Trisha is wrong. She has been so vile this entire time. Let's be real says Keem is simultaneously trying to take Ethan down while rehabilitating his own image. I don't know that I agree that Keem is rehabilitating his image. I think he's trying to make himself more relevant. He is not interested in rehabilitating, but yes, he wants to take Ethan down. I agree. Queen Meg says Trisha needs to log off for like 5 months and get themselves together. Sacred Somebody says, I'm done with anyone who helps Keem get views. Yep. He's not a good person, period. Tina says it's all so toxic. I love these very concise things that just like, yep, that it perfectly encapsulates this whole situation. Let's see. Pastoral. Pasta Lord says, don't trust any of them. Avery says Ethan's mom's text was out of line, but not as crazy as Trish made it seem. I kind of agree. It's like I said, it's one of those things that people have varying degrees of sensitivity around. So it's not my place to say like, oh, it's not that serious. Don't take it that seriously. But also, I don't know. I don't agree that Donna should have sent it. I don't think it's okay. But I don't know if it's just as like, so the thing is, I want to take Trisha at their word. I want to take everyone at their word. That's hi, have we met? I like to take people at their word, but the thing is that Trisha will speak in absolutes. And so I don't know when they're being literal or when they're speaking hyperbolically, because how many people has Trisha said is the one person they hate the most, right? Is that Keemstar? It has been. Is it Gabby Hanna? It has been. David Dobrik, Jason Nash? It has been. So when they say things like it's just so vile and so vile and so scummy, the scummiest thing, it's the absolutes, like the worst thing I've ever been told. Is it? If it is, then I will trust you if you say that. But is it? Because we've heard similar language before, so it does make me wonder. Thank you, producer Amber, for sending me some screenshots. Let's see. And on that note, Cinderito says Trisha continues to be incredibly frustrating. I wish they could be really honest for once. Yeah. Avery also said, I like this. Keem definitely used Trish. Trisha lies all the time, and people still think Ethan is people that think that Ethan is a liar is kind of nuts. Are people really talking about who's lying in this situation? And that's a legitimate question I'm throwing to the audience. Because I don't think that, at least for me, the conversation here is not around who's lying and who's telling the truth. Thank God for once, because those are conversations that are just not easy for me to have. I tend to believe that people are telling the truth. So I don't like conversations about like, who's lying, who's telling the truth. It's more just like how they're engaging, what they're talking about, and should they be talking about it. And 100%, that's the concept of Keem using Trisha is something that people are not talking about enough, because dude turned right around and brought Gabby in right behind Trisha. Like that, right? Like, what you wanna talk about a weasel? Keem's the weasel. So, let's see. I wanna read a couple more of these. Um, Emily says, "I really liked Trish a lot, but I don't see how Ethan could ever forgive them for this." It's one of those things where I get so embroiled in these conversations and I'm like, "Yes, yes, yes, I agree, this is horrible, this is awful." And then there are times like, "Should this really be this serious?" I'm sorry that I'm just, like, completely pulling the bait and switch on you guys, but I just again, it I don't wanna say that we're making, mountains out of molehills, because this is serious to a degree, but I wonder if it's as serious as we're making it out to be. The 5% thing, looking back, I really don't think. I really don't think it was as serious as it was made out to be. I also really don't know how much of my lipstick is staying on my lips right now. Um, but I just considering there were such worse things that happened. But yeah, just giving any sort of promotion to Keemstar is terrible. Um, Taryn says, "I think they both have been immature in different ways." Yeah, and in some similar ways too, just engaging. Hello, our favorite Ambryn said Keem is the worst human there ever was. Okay, Ambryn, can I just take a moment? Can we just have an Ambryn appreciation moment? Because I love that girl. I do. I love her so much. Um, it was funny because I was screen capping these responses, and I just quickly scrolled past Keem is the worst human there ever was, and I was like, "Yep, amen. I'm gonna read that one out loud." And then I see it's my best friend. So, hey, Amber, and I don't know if you're watching this back, but if so, there's some love for you in the chat. So come freaking watch my podcasts, dude. Um, am I the only person who's able to pin a comment? If somebody can please write a quick reminder to use they them pronouns when talking about Trisha Paytas, I'll go ahead and pin that comment. Toadbean says, "Annoyed, glad the Kleins moved on. Trisha is continuing the narrative any way they can." Let's try to remember to use the they pronouns. Lorena says, "Sad." You gotta love those really like short. I hear you say, Jack, but I'm asking for it now because I haven't been paying attention to the chat. Um, but I just got okay. Thank you, Audie. I just got a message about it. Also, if somebody is okay, now there's a message pinned about the pronouns. Guys, use the correct pronouns. If you've made a mistake, no hard feelings. You know, mods, please try to be gracious with people in correcting them because it could be a genuine mistake. But at the same time, you have my permission to boot people who are not respecting that. We don't roll with transphobic vibes around here. So, and that is what I consider that. If mistakes are mistakes, but just accept the correction and we move on and have a good time. Here's a good point. As Al says, Donna's text was rude. I wish she apologized. Trish isn't in the right either, but crying face. Yeah. Why we didn't really get an apology for that? We got an explanation, and that helped me a little bit. But why can't these people apologize? Seriously. Rena says, "Do you think Trish has really changed?" That's a good question. I hope it wasn't rhetorical. Um, um, oh, somebody sent me a message saying that they were really sorry for accidentally using the incorrect pronouns. Thank you for reaching out and saying that. No hard feelings. It's just something that I ask people to do for me, correct me if I use the wrong pronouns. And I think this community is getting much better about just accepting the corrections. And so I just want to make sure that I'm throwing that out there, not directly at you, but especially last week. I think only one person out of the many comments I read used the correct pronouns. But thank you for that message. So back to what Rena says. Do I really think that Trish has changed? Yes. But that is not to mean it in the way that I think a lot of people are going to take it. People seem to think that like so and so has changed is like an all or nothing thing. like that it's in all absolutes. And Trisha even said about Ethan, like, I think Ethan's changed. And he has too, I think. But people seem to think it's like either somebody's changed, oh, I thought you changed, but you hadn't, or even Keem has said even Keem says he's changed, which like I believe is possible, but I didn't know much about him prior to like 2 or 3 years ago. Um, but we have seen change from Trisha. Does that mean it's enough? Not necessarily. Does that mean that they're in the right with the situation? Not necessarily. Does that mean that you have to like them? No. But have they changed? I do think that we are starting to see change. And so actually this will kind of lead me back to the point that I was look at me catching my train of thought or getting back on it. So I do think that that Trisha has changed in some ways, and I do think that this whole situation since the ending of Frenemies has been a bit of a setback, especially being on the heels of a lot of drama with Gabby Hanna that really was just causing a lot of. I was gonna say like, oh, I don't mean to like put this on Gabby Hanna, but fuck it, yeah, some of this can be put on Gabby Hanna because she really did affect a lot of people's mental health this past spring and summer, and like, fuck that. Um, that I'm not saying that she's solely responsible for any regression that happened with Trisha or anyone, but it's been a really tough couple of years, and we started to see, I think, a lot of really. Here's what I think. I think that there was a lot of course correction by Trisha Paytas in 2020. I think we saw almost a 180, and that's not sustainable because you have to, if you're going to change and make personal growth, that has to take place over the course of a long time and a lot of the right kind of work, therapy, sometimes medication, making amends, really learning how to take accountability, learning how to trust people, learning how to properly communicate with people, learning how to apologize, take accountability, and also hold others accountable. There's so much that goes into personal growth. And then on top of that, we got to talk about social awareness, issues surrounding like identity politics, gender politics, governmental politics, social awareness, things like that. And so we saw, I think at the beginning of 2020, we saw kind of Trisha Paytas at their kind of their their status quo for what we've known of them. And then, just being kind of a bit undereducated about things before they speak on them. And I truly believe that's what happened with the DID situation. I think that Trisha has very much been on this journey of self-discovery, but in a way that is almost like frantic with a big huge question mark over it for the whole time they've been in the public eye. And so that's come down to like mental health, um, gender identity, uh, sexual orientation, and just identity in general. They've talked a lot about just wanting to belong in certain ways into certain groups and relating to different people. And so we can all think whatever we think about the situation around Anthony Padilla and Mikey's done. So glad that girl's canceled because I got my hell for criticizing her. But you know, re- oh my anxiety ring just spun. I love you. What was I saying? I do think that Trisha likely this is just my assessment. Keep in mind, I do take people at their word. But, I do think that Trisha probably thought that they related to what they were hearing in Dissociated's video, and I think they kind of pulled the trigger on saying, "Hey, this is what I have," before really taking the time to learn what that all entails and truly discover whether or not that is what's going on with them. And I do think kinda going back to 2018, we saw that Trisha made a video coming out as a gay man who is also a drag queen. And it is not our place to say at all whether that's right or wrong. And I believe there was even a doctor that they spoke to at the time who legitimized that. And I think that is totally legitimate. But they also said some things that were inaccurate just in general, in terms of, and that was a common criticism, and has been forever, of Trisha Paytas, which is they spread misinformation. So that is a valid criticism. But that doesn't mean that their experience with these things and what they perceive to be reality, that doesn't mean that they're lying to us. So I think, we saw them trying to be decent, trying to be good at the beginning of 2020. And then after they were made fun of by Mikey and Anthony is when we saw them take a turn for the worse. And so that just makes me mad at everybody involved. And then that's when they turned on the troll, which they say that they're done with that. Hopefully they're done trolling, because it's not good. It's not a good practice. And it's also just like outdated. But then we saw, yeah, all the spicy chicken sandwich videos. If you don't know, Trisha put out like every other day a trying the spicy chicken sandwich, Chick-fil-A sandwich or something like that video. And the implication was that they were pretending to be trying these sandwiches as different altars. So and not knowing that they'd already posted a video about it, or had tried the sandwich. So that was frustrating. I wanted them deplatformed at that point, because I was just like, okay, you're just going online and making a mockery of people's mental health, and it's not okay. I still disagree with it. Um, and then I also highly disagree with a lot of the behavior they displayed with the Kleins. The first and second times they went on the H3 podcast last year. And this kind of, also, I don't think we're placing enough responsibility around this stuff on Moses. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, because I have mixed feelings about that. I have said some very complimentary things about him. I have said that I think that he's great for Trisha. And in a way, I still believe that to be true. And I do think that the fact that clearly they have not had a healthy relationship this whole time. Like, everybody's honest about that. I don't want to get into things that I haven't given trigger warnings on, but we've already touched on it before. There were things that were indicative of a really healthy dynamic between the two of them that they have said they've been working through with therapy, with individual and couples therapy, I believe, and just, medications, diagnoses, and all of this stuff. But otherwise, from what we've seen since then, since they've become more stable, engaged, and all that, they seem to make a happy couple that is good. How do I put this? They seem good for each other in kind of a capsule. If you don't consider other people, in relation, they seem to be good together. The problem is, and so that I was going to say, to entering this relationship with Moses, that seemed just kind of like hypersexual, almost trolling at the beginning, and then, with some abusive dynamics at some point. It didn't seem all great at first, and then it seemed to morph into something that was more serious, more stable, more respectable. And I think that was an indication of some of the growth that Trisha was starting to show. And I let me finish that point too. I think that I've seen this phenomenon before, at least in AA, because I remember being there myself. Is like, you spend all this time as a fuck up, however long that is, just really like royally messing up all the time. Of course, I'm going to throw an addiction reference, because that's what I know. And then getting sober and going to AA meetings. There may be people in the audience who are familiar with this experience. I'm sure I'm not the only person who's experienced this, but I know that, like, going to AA in those first few months, I was like super hypercritical of myself and really wanting to hold myself to this standard of just perfection. And I did not feel worthy of any of the people I was around, or at least anybody who had more time than me, somebody who was going to more meetings than me, somebody who had a sponsor in a home group before me, just people who were quote unquote doing it better than me. And I just I wanted to make sure that I was never doing anything that was worthy of criticism at all. And when I saw really Trisha Paytas at their height of like doing well at the height of the redemption arc and all of that. I saw a little bit of that in them. Like, I know that they're trying so hard, and there's no shame in somebody who's just trying to do right. And so I kind of picked up on that. I wonder if anybody else did too. Ooh, Keem and Trisha are fighting on Twitter right now. Are we gonna get screenshots of that? Um, so yeah, so I think that that was happening a bit, and the thing is that we as the audience should recognize that people are going to grow at times and they're gonna regress, and we cannot hold them to the standard of perfection that, quite honestly, is inorganic at times. It is a bit forced at times, and it's not sustainable. I'm not perfect. And I'm not at my highest all the time, and neither is anyone else. So that's not to say like, oh, forgive Trisha Paytas. You don't need to fucking forgive anyone. You don't. But to say, do I think that somebody has changed? Yes, I can believe that this person has changed. I can believe this person has grown. I can believe this person has regressed. I can believe this person can continue to regress, and I can believe this person will continue to grow. We don't know. That's their personal journey. But do I think that they have changed? Yeah. I mean, even just seeing them from year over year, we see people change. So I do have high hopes for Trisha. This is just in this moment right now, things just like this does not look good. In their most recent video, I saw that they're taking some time away from social media, so hopefully that does help. And that's the thing is we should want people to change for the better. I know there are lots of people. I'm sure I'm gonna get some thumbs down on this for even implying that there is room for Trisha Paytas to grow and that they can do that. Like, fuck it, I'll take the thumbs down because people should be given room to grow. Like, even if Abby Hanna and Keemstar wanna come around and be decent people for once, I would like to give them the room to do that. And you will hear in my podcast, or not my podcast, this is my podcast. Hello, welcome to Basically a Podcast. You may hear in my upcoming video, positive and negative, specifically about Faye's Banks. If anybody heard the podcast, you might agree or not, or know what I'm talking about when I say that he seemed like the voice of reason, and at the same time, he was still saying things that were just really kind of fucked up. And so being able to see bad and good in people is what this channel is all about. So, I know that I got some screenshots to read. I probably got a couple of super chats to read too. So let's take a super chat break. I want to stay on top of this and say hello to my lovely donors. So Zoe the cat. Zoe the cat had a super chat that glitched last time, and I thought maybe it was just a troll comment, and so I was like, "Oh, did a troll give me some money?" Blah blah blah. Made a whole joke about it. It was not a troll. It was Zoe the cat, and her message didn't come through. But this one says, "Hi, I realize this has nothing to do with the topic, but exciting news! My wedding just arrived today. Exciting! Also, I've been wondering, is at Naley an OTH reference? Naley's gonna have to be the one to answer that one. So I'm not sure what that is. Oh, is that like One Tree Hill? I would probably say no is the answer, but that's exciting about your wedding dress. Oh, I got a message that says, "Yep, it is." Okay, sure. It is a reference. But yeah, super exciting about your wedding dress. I hope that you will share. Oh, never mind. You might not share photos in the Discord. I forget that there's a secretive element to picking out a wedding dress. So, but if you do care to share it um and feel safe doing so and keeping it a secret from your partner, if that is what you're hoping to do, then we would love to see it on Patreon or on Discord. Moonchild, hey, sweetheart, I thought you weren't coming to this one, but I so love to see you here. Moonchild just makes me happy. She says, "You look fabulous," heart, and did the my little nug emoji, sending love to everyone. Thank you, Moonchild. You're just a bright ray of sunshine in the world, which is funny because your name is Moonchild. But hey, what is the moon if not a reflection? Well, I don't know. I'm about to talk about celestial things in a way that what is a moon if not a see, there I go. What is a moon? What we see of the moon is due to the sun, and that is you, my child. Wow, I so apologize to all of you guys listening to that moment I just had. Alistair says Trisha and Gabby are the same because they both attack people, especially pregnant women, and they both associate themselves with trash play victim. Yeah, I agree. I can agree with some of the stuff that you're saying. I think one of this thing that we're going to have, Alistair, is that I'm never going to agree, or at least as things stand right now, that Gabby and Trisha are the same. Because here's the thing: you can't, just because you do shitty things and you own that you do shitty things does not mean that anybody has to forgive you, like you, or that you can continue to be shitty. We see a lot of that with Trisha saying like, yes, like they fuck up and then the next day they say like, I fucked up, I fucked up, I fucked up. My issue with Trisha is that we see a lot of taking accountability in that sense, but it's almost getting to the point where it's almost like knee jerk. It's like, I know I need to recognize that, but that is not a solution. You still need to do the growth to make these, to prevent these things from continuing to happen. The problem is that Gabby Hanna is not even there yet. That's my issue, is that Gabby Hanna does not admit when they fucked up. They might give a very general and sweeping, I haven't always been the easiest to work with type of apology, right? But then they'll turn right around and say, or even if she starts to get even the slightest bit specific and say, well, I was difficult to work with on that set, then takes it right back. No, I wasn't. I was just dealing with an undiagnosed disorder or whatever she said. Well, then you're not taking responsibility for anything that you've done, are you? Or very much, I think we all, or most of us agree, that she gives the apologies that are very much like, I'm so sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you got hurt by that. There's never, I don't think I've ever heard Gabby Hanna say, unless it was an outright mistake, like we saw with the teenager in this shirt in that video, like an apology for that, because that was a legitimate mistake and not a poor decision based on a flaw in her character. I've never witnessed her apologize for something that was due to her own, just like her own malintentions. That's something that I've never seen her own up to. Trisha, I have. So although Trisha is very much not like in a in kind of a favorable light around these situations, I still don't agree that, and that's not directly at you, Alistair, but just to this concept, because it is something that people talk about. Are they or are they not the same? And so that's just my 2 cents. But you guys know I have a history with actually talking about both of these people. Also, Bree, I believe is your name, BNAP, sent a red rose super sticker. Thank you. I love red roses. Bit of trivia. I want to get a tattoo of one. I just don't know where. October, hey, says I have such a long convo to have about being an ex-sex worker and the effect it has on gender. I have some insight on what Trish feels. Oh, interesting. I hope you share it with us somewhere. I'd love to get your input on that. Alistair also says, I'm sorry, but Trisha has never changed. Everyone who thinks that they have, I believe you all have been played. Timothy says, I love your live streams. I am an artist and I'm hoping that I have the honor of painting your portrait. Thank you. I'm not going to stop you. Thank you. I see a comment on that. And Mercedes Marie says, hi, Leash. I love you. And BAP, thank you. I'm wondering if you've seen Mysterious's video on Trisha or Contradictions of Trish on TikTok. Do you have any thoughts? Not on Mysterious's video, no. There are plenty of videos out there that talk about Trisha's history, and I'm happy to watch those. But I'll just go ahead and take this moment to say this, that that creator is very much not just pro Gabby, but also pro Keemstar. Let's keep that in mind. And also is anti me. So it's really difficult for me to want to give that person a view and like listen to what they have to say. But I hear that video is making waves, so good for that creator. But if you're retweeting and supporting Keemstar, then it just like my perception is very skewed, which is funny because it makes me believe that the decision to make so I've made a video, right? I made a series called History of Scandals and Controversies and did what 5 parts on Trisha Paytas. I swear this eyelash is so trying to escape. You guys are gonna get those who are watching the video get to watch me try to apply this magnetic lash back on. Um, I am far more now. It's possible to make a valid video on somebody that you don't like. Very, very much is possible. But I would rather watch somebody make a video about somebody's history that is coming in without a bunch of biases. I believe that I had pretty neutral views about Trisha Paytas when I went into making my history of scandals and controversies on them. But if it's really interesting to me because, on YouTube, it's like all about these alliances, right? And people you'll see their brains short circuit because they're like, well, so and so's on this side, and then this person is on this side, but then this person dislikes them but likes them. So which side are they on and who do I align myself with? But now it's like for so long, we've seen these people who are so in support of Gabby Hanna and then Keemstar, of course, because they're BFFs now, that, because Gabby Hanna is so anti Trisha Paytas that trust me, I've dealt with so many Gabby stans calling Trisha my favorite person, calling us BFF, stuff like that, because they hate me, they hate Trisha, they love Gabby. And now I'm wondering what's going to happen because Trisha is now friendly with Keem. Well, somebody said they're fighting online, but I who knows? Hopefully they don't continue to be even friendlier with Keem, but they were on this podcast, in my opinion. And then, they still seemed pretty resistant to liking Gabby or being open to Gabby being right or being okay or being misunderstood, blah, 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 blah. But the more you chum it up with Keemstar, the more you might just open yourself up to Gabby. And so what's going to happen if and when Trisha goes to the dark side? I mean, they're already on their way by going on Keemstar's podcast. But if they're friends with Keem and then they become friends with Gabby, then what is Mysterious going to have to say? What are the Gabby stans going to have to say? Because guess what, Gabby stans? Trisha seems like they're on their way to your side. So I'd love to see you guys have to eat your words. At least I can hold true to the things that I've said this whole time. People change. People regress. People make waves this way and that way. And now I'm just rambling. So I don't know. We'll see. That's just what happens when people are just nasty online with each other. And I'm going on a huge tangent because that creator has been nasty with me. Blue, Black Noisy Blue, hey, says, I love you and the lovely wrenches. I love you too. I wish that I miss you. I don't talk to you enough, Blue, but we love Blue around these parts. Hey, Rachel / Team Dill Pickle, I love you too. I really need to take some time. I'm looking forward to Thursday when we all sit down and have Thursday Night Live on Patreon. But Rachel says, just sending love to Lil Nug and my fellow wrenches. Thank you guys. And thank you for the love to the mod team, the wrenches out there, because I can tell by these super chats that they are working hard. So thank you guys so much for fostering a space that is conducive to people's comfort and respect. That is of utmost importance to me. Blue says you're busy lately. That's okay. I'm busy too. We all get busy sometimes. So, let me read. I don't want to. Let me read 2 emails and then check out these screenshots. So, Lauren Holland wrote in or left a comment. I don't know if it's one or the other. And said, this is about what Donna said to Trisha. Lauren said, Lauren personally doesn't think Ethan's mom, Donna, was wrong in sending what she said to Trisha. This was an email. Thank you, producer. What she said to Trisha. Hila seems to have a high-risk pregnancy and finally got pregnant after a painful journey with IVF. To be clear, they haven't done IVF. I'm sure that was just a mistake, but they've done fertility treatments. They've done like shots in her tummy, and like I guess I don't know what it's called now, but like artificial insemination. Um, but yeah, it's been a journey nonetheless. So Lauren can understand Donna's displeasure. Stress can be detrimental to a healthy pregnancy. I agree. I totally agree with the sentiment of worrying. Just being like, I am I have a grandchild on the way and I want to do everything I can. I can do my part to make sure that that baby comes into this world healthy and with as few complications as possible. That sentiment is one that I can totally get behind. I don't agree with the words she chose and where she chose to send them. I do think that see, I go back and forth, like I do think that is when you're talking to somebody who's not your family directly, if you've got links in between, meaning this is your child's family, your child's merit, your child's spouse's family, it's not saying that like they're not close enough to have any feelings towards these people. It's more like, are you being respectful to what your child would want? Are you and okay, say your child would want that. Are you being respectful to what that child's partner would want? Because you're speaking to your child's partner's sibling. And this I could get into a whole conversation about this, but my mode of thinking is that if there's a message that I need to get across those degrees, then it is the responsibility of those parties in between to get that messaging across. Donna wants to pretend like, oh, it's family of family, and that's family in our book. But like, if this is how you're talking to each other, then are you guys really like? I didn't even get into everything I was gonna say about Moses, my goodness, but, um, so I don't agree with reaching out to Moses directly. I don't agree with using those words and saying, like, "If this happens, it's your responsibility," but I do agree with this being serious and being a legitimate concern that Donna has. Yes, absolutely. On the same token, why are you not saying the same to your child? This is not about being pro Ethan, pro Trisha, anti Donna, pro Donna. It's not about that. It is about this child and our collective responsibility to make sure that we are not creating more problems for Hila and her pregnancy. And it seems like it's all about the drama and not necessarily about Hila or her pregnancy, in my opinion, just with the way some people are handling this. Um, so another email about what Donna said to Trisha by Stutterdoll, and there's a trigger warning. We are talking about miscarriage here. Stutterdoll is not a Trisha stan, but believes Donna was absolutely wrong in sending that text to Trisha. Stutterdoll suffered a miscarriage last year, and it was no one's fault, not theirs or anyone else's, just in genetic defects like most losses. To put the blame on a potential loss of Hila's baby on Trisha is wrong, unless a medical professional outright says it was due to stress and nothing else, which is unlikely. Yeah, that's true. Is that you and Trisha did make a comment about like I have to wait this out, um, because then yes, you have to make sure that the baby is carried to term and everything is healthy, and then if not, God forbid, then what is the reason and all that. And the fact of the matter is when you lose, I've never suffered a miscarriage, so I can't speak from that. Can't speak from personal experience on that. But just when it comes to any sort of grief, any sort of loss, I do know that it's very common for people to feel responsible when they're not. But I've lost a sibling, and there have been times where I feel responsible for that loss. And we know cognitively that we're not responsible for these things, but it's already enough for people to live with that themselves because almost all of us, we do it to ourselves. But to have somebody else come in and confirm those insecurities or those worries that are already hard enough to come from your own mind, it's I might say it's abusive. It kind of like maybe this connection is one that only I can see, maybe not others, but it kind of reminds me of like the insecurities I have about my body. Trigger warning, I'm not going to talk very explicitly about it, but just like body image stuff. But like insecurities that I have about my body, and I'll look in the mirror and I'll pick myself apart. And then, the people who love me are just like, I don't see what you see, like you don't need to worry so much about this stuff. Like, I understand that these insecurities and these worries are very real for you, just like they are for anyone, but just know that I don't see that. And that's reassuring, and that's what loving people do. Or some people who might love you, but might have abusive dynamics. I've had a partner tell me exactly what's wrong, what's quote unquote wrong with my body, and it was everything that I've been insecure about. So it's to have somebody speak validation into those irrational fears is it's got a very strong impact. It's got a very strong impact. So I know that I kind of go back and forth with like how bad is it, but it's I wasn't either party to that. But I think it's a bit reckless. So I agree with that. Let me read these screenshots because I do believe that they will contain something of what I was referring to. So what is this first screenshot? Okay, see, so these are some screenshots of Moses's Twitter. So thank you for this, producer Amber. I don't know if I'm going to read all these because there's a lot. So somebody said weaponizing your fan base against, oh, this is aimed at H3. Weaponizing your fan base against Moses and Trisha to this extent is more harmful than going on a podcast. Their comment sections are horrific. Ethan trying to play off. First one is no first. Oh, okay. Thank you, Amber. Ethan trying to play off like it's not H3 fans instead of just telling them to tone it down. Moses stepped in and said H3 subreddit is the source of all of it. They can't say it is not their fans. You are not even seeing the extent of their comments and actions, what we see, since most are filtered out as hate speech and harassment. But we do see it, and it is far worse than calling someone a horse. Somebody said, dude, if my brother showed this kind of disregard and belittlement of my feelings, I would be hurt. And Moses says, it's a shame you weren't here when my family trashed me just for the fact that I was dating Trisha. Please go back and watch all the videos they made about me without my consent. To them, I was fair game because I dated someone they looked down on. Thanks. That Moses, thanks. Someone said maybe they were worried you started dating someone mentally ill with a track record of doing things like what's going on right now. And he says no, they were worried about how it would make them look. Oof. Someone said you're ruining your own life just to prove a point. Marrying a crazy oh, I don't like this. Marrying a crazy person just to spite your family. I really hate. Okay, it is pet peeve. Let's bring back the salty segment for a second. I really hate when people say child on the internet. First of all, it is usually not of a dialect that these people are speaking, but you guys realize that what you're spelling is Chile, right? I'm not talking to you, my audience, but just I'm actually speaking a lot to these teenage bullies online that talk to me, but you do realize that you are referring to a country in South America, right? So when I see that, all I see is Chile. It is sad, Chile, and embarrassing for you. That's just mean. Ew. And Moses says, this is another lie Ethan put out there to hurt me. I never dated someone to spite my family, ever. My family, not Ethan's, love Trisha and are so happy for me. You are manipulated by words. That is scary, actually scary. So actually, I was going to say that I thought that Moses was getting messy, and I don't agree with a lot of it. You know what's messy is these eyelashes. I think I just need to take them off, sadly. They are not behaving, and they're making my job more difficult. Sorry, my little eyes are bare now. So let me see if there's anything else that I want to read. Um, so there is a lot of Moses kind of like stepping in and saying a lot, which is on one hand, you want to be like, good for Trisha for having a partner that's really going to step in and defend them. This is a little excessive, just as many tweets as I'm seeing, but my thoughts on this are so complicated. Let me make sure that I'm still streaming. Hi. Um, again, I like who Moses is as a partner to Trisha. He seems to be very supportive. He seems to be a good partner. I don't know that I like his behavior as a big brother. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a pretty considerable age difference between, Moses and Hila. I saw a picture of him holding her, and he was a teenager, maybe, and she looked like she was maybe about, 5 or so. So, and I think he is like 40 something. Now I'm doing all kinds of math right now in my head, but there is like a decade at least, I think, between them or so. Um, and I do think it's of course it's a whole family thing. Families work as a system, and when one part is broken, then all parts become broken. People are broken. People come to families broken, and then they perpetuate, brokenness in their families. And that's not to say families suck and families blah blah blah. Families are a beautiful thing, but we all have our flaws, and they all impact the family system. But I have a tendency to believe that when you are considerably older, and I'm saying this because I am the eldest of 4 too, but you have to be the one to really, like, kind of pull it together sometimes, and because you're setting an example for your younger siblings. Of course, they're adults at this point, so it may be that Moses has been a model older brother, and perhaps Hila just has been horrible, and we just don't know that side of her. Not likely, but it's possible. But I just going back to I don't wanna deny just some of the things that Moses did early on in this relationship. It wasn't respectful to Trisha, and it wasn't respectful to Ethan and Hila, it was respectful to no one. I'm gonna be real about Moses. Like I said, seems like a great partner to Trisha, but how this started? Mm-mm. He started off by, they were doing the Bachelor and the Bachelorette with Trisha as their single person that was, "Let's date Trisha." And according to Ethan and Hila, Moses made a joke, I'm gonna hook up with her just to kind of mess with you guys in this show." So, that was why? Why would why talk to your family that way? Why treat your family that way? Like, why? I just something just with him just doesn't connect. I don't get why he's so quick to be so nasty with his own family. At the same time, I'm not denying the possibility that what he's saying about, like, they don't like the way it makes them look for me to be dating somebody like Trisha just because of exactly the reasons the way this person was characterizing Trisha, which I think it's totally fine not to like Trisha for whatever reason, but to say things like a crazy person, like, whatever else they said, like, they didn't want you dating a crazy person or whatever, like, I hated that. So, okay, um, 1 second. Producers, if there's anything that, I wrenches, if there's anything that you need to get to me, please go through the producer. Sorry, now I'm looking at the chat and, the Chile pronunciation, though. That's funny. Um, so it looks like the chat is going a little slow, so I hope everything's okay. Okay. Um, so now I'm kinda just in limbo right now, like, do I keep talking? Okay. Oh, October, did you get the dress on Depop? Yay! That's fun. Um Child is AAV and people are pissed. Can we have a conversation about that? Because I hope that I didn't say anything um, that was offensive. I did mention that a lot of the people who are using this term are borrowing from a dialect that is not theirs. I mean, part of my criticism of the use of doing that is just the spelling of it. So, which, like, I'm pretty sure that I'm allowed to say that I don't love the spelling of this, like, slang word. But yeah, I don't like to hear people use it when most likely that is just not how they speak. So, um, and yes, I am Mexican. Not that that matters. You guys, we should all know that Chile is a country in South America. Um, so I wanna make sure that I am not creating unrest in my audience. I love you guys. Um, so let's talk it out if there's an issue. Um, yeah, I don't think it sometimes I feel like we qualify these things by being like, "Oh, but I'm Mexican," or "She's Mexican," or like, it doesn't matter. That's not part of my particular, vernacular. It is not how I grew up, so it's not something I use, and that's generally just kind of like how I think it should be. Um, to be fair, AAVE often gets picked up by stan Twitter, whether that's a good thing or not, it's debatable. Yeah, I'm sure it is. I think that it's definitely open for criticism, though, when it's being used to be mean, you know? Like, I think that it used to be that these things were debatable when it was for the sake of comedy. Now, if we're saying it's debatable, and I'm not criticizing you specifically, I'm just saying, like, that concept, I believe you're absolutely right that it is probably debatable. Um, and that but if you're using it to if you're weaponizing these things, these, like, debatably should we use them or borrow them or, is it appropriation or appreciation? But if you're using these terms as weapons against the people that you don't like, I think for sure that's open to criticism. Um, yeah, non-PC people utilizing AAV to seem cool. I mean, some yeah, an intellectual says it's part of your Southern vernacular to say it sounds like child. Yeah, I'm not the arbiter on this. I do know that it is also a Southern accent thing, that just knowing from being in the South, and for sure, AAVE is absolutely valid. I hope that I didn't imply that it is not. Um, I just yeah, when I see a Gabby stan, which, like, I was I don't know remember why I was thinking this, but I was like, has anyone noticed that almost every single one of these stans is a white kid?" And so, like, I'm sure that a stan is gonna be like, "Nuh-uh, so and so is a person of color because they're, 1/16th indigenous," or whatever. Like, I'm sorry, like, at this point, I'm just, like, in my sauciness. Um, but it's never actually, people from the African American community that are using that word against me. It is, I'm sorry, it's rich little blonde girls that, over in Europe that are sending me death threats, really graphic death threats in Instagram. That's who I'm talking about when I say that you look ridiculous when you try to get at me by using the word Chile or or as you're pronouncing it when you read it, child. Um, Bitches who got a horse. Leave. I love you. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap between Southern accent and, AAVE. I mean, guys, I think that it's best just to, really when we're having these conversations and debates, I I wanna say this with the utmost respect because, yes, I'm Mexican, but, yes, I also am white or appear white. I'm white presenting, so I have all the privilege that comes along with being white in society, and I think it is best when we have these debates to stop with all due respect, I love you guys, to not bring these conversations so much or debates so much to other people who experience the same privilege, but maybe talk to somebody that and we should know, we should all know people who are, within these communities, their take on it. Inform the people in your circle, absolutely, with what you've been told, but I don't think there's any point in just, like, arguing about it if we are not the people that those terms are not meant for. Is if that makes sense? Um, horse girls. I'm sorry, but horse girl derogatory. Okay. I hope are we good? Are we good? Like, I think that everybody's pretty much on the same page, I think. Um Vika has no circle. I'll be your circle. I hope can we move on from that? Because I just like I'm not gonna take it back. I think it does sound ridiculous when, Stan Twitter does try to bully people using talking like this. It's not okay. I'm not taking that back. Um, we shouldn't ask them to do our intellectual labor for us. That's fair. I do think that there is plenty of information out there, though, for us to go and educate ourselves. So thank you for correcting me on that. Some people do want to do that. Like, I don't want people to pass over me and my opinions on things that I am, a valid source for to say because they don't want me to do the emotional labor. There are certain things that I would be happy to have my opinion asked for. So it's all, it all depends on the person. It is a good practice to ask people if you can get their opinion on something or if they would rather you not. So you do make a good point, but I don't think that it necessarily is a discussion, or it's a good discussion for everybody to have. I don't think it's necessarily a debate for people who are not within these communities to be deciding for other people. Does that make more sense? Um, yeah, and to Jazzy's point, there are a lot of creators in various communities that talk on these things and have put this information out for our consumption so we can go educate ourselves. So if we can all just agree that it's our jobs collectively to, as socially aware people, to go out when we have these questions or we experience these, like, these things, these, like, uncomfortable conversations that come up, that it's our jobs to go educate ourselves, whether that means going and finding that content online or talking to somebody who wants to be consulted about things like this. It's just a good practice. um Cat Black is amazing. I just love her. She's entertaining as hell. Um, so let's move on because we're almost at 2 hours now. Um, so um, sorry, I'm looking back and I'm guessing that some of these are old. So moving on from Moses, and yeah, I just there's something off. There's something off there that I wish were a little bit different, that I wish were, I wish that they would, as a family, Moses and Hila could find some sort of, I don't know. They're such quiet people. It's easier with people like Trisha and Ethan, who are so expressive and so involved in the drama, to, like, make judgment calls on what's going on with them and if they are handling this property properly, what they should do, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, what they shouldn't do. And with Ethan, or with Hila and Moses, they're just so quiet and reserved that you really, like, it's hard to tell what's going on with them. But all I know is that there's just something that feels dysfunctional to me and it makes me sad. As somebody who loves her family, as somebody who loves her siblings, and as somebody who's lost a sibling, it just makes me sad. So, to worry about, it's not our job to fix somebody else's family. It's not. I was simply saying that it's something that makes me sad. That I kind of like when I witness it, and that's the thing. It's none of our jobs to fix anyone else, but we do witness these things, and it does make us feel a certain way. So, yeah, when they don't care to fix it themselves, true. Why do we care more than they do? Something's wrong. Something wrong. Something's wrong, peoples. Um. So, oh gosh, Keem is taking applications. um. Okay. Sorry, guys. I just wanted to make sure that I'm talking to my mods and making sure everything's okay. So, is this real? Gross. I'm seeing a screenshot. So, if you didn't see the video that Keemstar posted on Twitter today, he was just like, "So, update. The girlfriend and I have broken up. The good news is I'm single now." Ugh, gross. And now it looks like he's taking, this is so disgusting, taking applications online on Twitter. I asked for ID. She hit me with, okay, that's kind of funny. How are you going to reject a blood donor? But, like, I'm sure he's trolling for sure. So I can't let myself get too upset over it. He's not worth it, you know? How much of how much of the real estate up here am I going to let Keem take up? But so I'm gonna try not to take this too seriously, but like he is going within his fan base. He is playfully taking applications for dating, but who's to say that one of those people isn't gonna really catch his fancy? And this I mean, he dated a fan before. He wants to say that it's not a fan. I'm gonna say it's a fan, allegedly, if they met at a fan meetup. Um, so he says, "Is 29 too old for me? She looks 24." Ugh, only reason I ask is because I forgot last time the internet has to approve everyone I date. Dude, you're the one who's putting this shit on blast. Like, he is such an insecure little man who tries to act like this alpha dog who is secure to no end when, like, in trying to look secure, he's displaying all of his insecurities all over the place. Actually applications, age 22, from Boston, ugh, gross. Um, Trisha Paytas says, "If you have to ask for ID, she too young for you, bro." And Keem says, "You approved of the last one, stop hating." See, Trisha, like, this is the shit that you get yourself in because you were totally nice, to them about that relationship. And they said being respectful to humans is one thing, approving is something quite different. No, but you did approve of their relationship, which more on that in the next video. But, you know, you ha I wish that this was the hill that Trisha was gonna go down on. The hills. Um, but, you know, while it was not something that everybody in this even in this community agrees with, it was at least something that Trisha was standing for that was a well-intentioned, principle to stand for, and now you can't stand for that principle because you weren't able to do so when you were presented with the opportunity on that podcast, which was an opportunity that many people believe you shouldn't have taken at all, but because you took it, you didn't stand for it. So, let's see. Um, okay. We So I think those are pretty much there were some other screenshots, but that pretty much is the gist of it there. I want to check on some super chats because things got a little bit contentious there, and I want to cheer up. I want to cheer up. Although you guys can pay money just to really just like read me the fuck out, and that's okay too. Alistair says Trisha has given Hila stress like Gabby has for Jesse. We should hold them to the same accountability. Donna was right. Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely hold them to the same standard. Like I said, that was brought up in Paige's stream, and it was a valid point. All is in time says an unfortunate side effect of Trisha discussing family in a very public and intense way. Um, Hashtag of responses, OF responses, is it can spark intense reactions. Heart you, Leash. I love you too. Thank you. Yeah, that is a problem. I think kind of with both of them, with Trisha and Ethan too, is that you have to consider your platform sizes and how many people you're getting involved in your family life and stress and health. And I just wish they would stop. I think having these lawsuits, isn't that enough? That's enough. Um, I always see you as simply Monka, but I want to guess that your name is Monica, but I should really ask you that sometime. But they said, I genuinely feel that Trisha was Moses's type. I first got this feeling when they were on a break and he was DMing that not so savory person, which I'm not sure who you mean, but I do genuinely get the impression that they're both into each other, that Moses and Trisha really do like them or hate them, that it is legitimate and very genuine what they have, which is again part of the reason that I say like them or hate them. I think that in some ways they're good for each other, and in some ways, like, because they're not handling everything the best way, in ways they're not helping. They're kind of impeding each other. Um, and to be fair, I did say something very similar about Peyton and Gabby at one point. So, I like to look at these things, singularly as and try not or, there's always when you make a judgment call on one aspect of something, you should be able to do it kind of clinically without bringing in your biases or as little as possible on other things. And then there's also the part that you say, okay, we do consider the context it's in, and all of that. So in many ways, I think they're wonderful for each other. In other ways, I'm just like, look, you guys are clearly like enabling each other in these ways. So it's both. It's both a lot of times with me. So naturally, Malika said, Moses has been married several times. Google. I'm with all due respect, I don't think I want to. I don't think I'd like to look into stuff. I saw that people were doing that and getting to the point where they were doxing his exes, and like they don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that, especially these people who weren't, involved in any of this drama. But yeah, that was, I mean, was tea to find out that like he has been married a couple of times before. Um, Also, simply Monica said, also my last statement was in no means meant to place judgment on Trish or deem them unsavory. Simply not conservative. Sorry if that's how if sorry if this is now off topic. No worries. But thank you for the clarification. Nikita Tia Karava. I want to say your whole name. It's fun. There are lots of syllables. Shadid says, hi, I've been too busy to access Patreon as of late, but I have a lot more free time now. Yay. However, Leash, what you've built is something to be. I saw the however, and I was like, oh God, I'm about to get like my ass handed to me. What I built is something to be proud of. On your bad days, I hope you look and realize you built this. You've changed lives without even knowing it. Heart, thank you. I've been a little bit stressed for, maybe not speaking the best. Speaking from my best parts of my brain during this podcast. So I really appreciate the compliment. Thank you, Nikita. Audie says, just my weekly BAP, I love you message. I love you too, Audie. You also are just a ray of sunshine in my life and in this community. Everybody loves Audie. So wait a second. Did I just see? Oh, also, I didn't even notice. Nikita said 50 pounds? Is that correct? I don't deserve that. I didn't realize that until I clicked over to the stream and I see this like, what is that little magenta pink looking, thing? And I'm like, whoa, Nikita, that is way too sweet. So kind of you. Thank you so much. Um, you guys, I don't know that I deserve it, but thank you so much for making me feel better. Sometimes I get really stressed out. Live streams can be tough. I was watching a couple of them earlier. I was watching Sloan and um, Nick DeRamio. He's great on live, but also like he accidentally doxed himself in one, and I saw him and I was like, oh God, that feeling. And then I was watching Sloan and he was talking about how nervous he gets because like it's easy to mess up and then just like edit it out in when you're making a video, but when you're on live, like it's just out there. And I just remember thinking like, oh, the lives are not so bad. I don't think I get nervous, but like sometimes I do say things or I don't clarify things. And it's just like, it can be so stressful and it can take over. Like you can be on, but like your mind is still there. And that sucks. And I want to be here with you guys. Leaf. I know that is a message from Leaf that says stonks. Okay, that was funny. So, let me see. I'm sure that we've got a couple more emails. I'm gonna hang out with you guys because I'm not that eager to go to trivia tonight. So, thank you so much, producers, for adding some comments from community tab. Thank you. I was like, oh my God, there's a lot of emails, but no, they're community tab comments, which is so helpful. Thank you so much. Also, my anxiety ring started to spin and it was like, hey girl, I know you need me right now. See, it's spinning. I love it. Okay. So, Lynn Joy wants to know who wins. And they said, not defending Trisha, but Lynn Joy believes the internet wants Ethan to quote unquote win this battle. I mean, of course, let's just be real, completely clinical about this. Ethan is in the public favor. Trisha is not. Keemstar is not. Gabby Hanna is not. Like Hila definitely is. So of course the internet, like we should be able to like make judgment calls on or not even judgment calls, but just like recognize facts. And you can also be like, Like I want Jesse Smiles to win. I also like Jesse Smiles. I also am biased. I also have a bias against Gabby, and I also have a bias towards Jesse. I also do believe that, who's in the right. Like you should be able to have your opinions and recognize facts, like the internet wants Ethan to win. The internet makes huge leaps to blur the in-law lines to magnify the betrayal and outrage of the family, quote unquote, family destruction. Meanwhile, Trisha exhibits clear symptoms of their BAP, risk, rage, impulse, shame. How do we show compassion for mental illness while still holding those struggling accountable? Where do we draw the line? Trisha asked for Dr. Drew last week, how do you talk about struggling with mental illness without using it as an excuse and playing the victim? That's a really good question. And I don't know that I have the clearest answer, but we've had this conversation so much on my channel that I think that my thing is that we should always be forgiving of people. When people own up to their wrongdoings, we should be open to forgiving them. I mean, some people are going to say, no, I don't trust, whatever. That's your decision. But I think that is where you can hold that compassion, because like I have fucked up majorly due to my mental illnesses. And I do believe that I've learned and grown from those things. And I want people to forgive me and trust me. And going through experiences like that has allowed me to look at other people and be like, okay, well, they've gone through some shit, but they have to actually know that they have fucked up and display signs of growth. That might be where jury's still out on Trisha Paytas. And I know we kind of keep going back to like Gabby Hanna as an example too. Welcome to my channel. Fucking, like I said, take me to Sue Court over it. But Gabby Hanna is an example of somebody that is acting out, and not only whether or not it's due to mental illness or neurodiversity, we don't know, but we for sure know that Gabby Hanna chalks up all of her bad behavior to that. And that's not okay. Um, she doesn't own it. There are certain feelings that are prompted by mental illness. How you react in response to those feelings is your responsibility. And yes, some of us have it harder than others. And that's where I think I can be a little bit compassionate. I can be like, okay, I don't know personally what it's like to have BPD, but as much as I'm educating myself on it, it does sound like, in the moment, those things can happen and people can be set off and triggered. But at the same time, you don't have to be okay with it in the moment, because if you are in the moment, you're just like super forgiving of it. Like, be forgiving of it in that you don't respond as much as you can withhold. But we don't need to forgive people's bad behavior. Absolutely not. Or at least in the moment, we don't need to excuse it, is a better way to put it. We shouldn't, because just like with anything else, like again, going back to addiction, by the way, is a mental health issue. And there are some people who get so much in this mindset of be compassionate, be empathetic. That person is struggling with this thing that's making them behave in this way, right? And it's true. But by withholding your judgment and your criticism and consequences and all of that, you are enabling the thing that is keeping that person sick. It is the consequences, it is the feedback, it is the criticism, and it is the judgment that will prompt people to have to change, to have to do the things to be better in dealing with all of their mental issues, in dealing with their neurology, in dealing with their circumstances and all of that. We all need to experience those consequences. So there's a difference. Just because somebody needs to experience their consequences doesn't mean that we can't accept them as people. So, I mean, like, I'm sure Dr. Drew had a better answer than me, but that would be my answer, is that, if I were in that position, say Trisha has never been mean to me, so maybe use Gabby as an example. If Gabby were to come to me and say like, hey, I didn't know I was dealing with this, that, and the other, I've really these are the ways I've learned, and this is the way I've shown my growth, I could absolutely forgive her. Absolutely. But I haven't seen that behavior. And where I said the jury's kind of still out with Trisha, is that we've seen a lot of recognition of their misdoings, and then like sometimes growth, but other times it just seems like a repetition of like, okay, I was wrong. Yep, I fucked up there. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong. And so I'd like to see a little bit more growth, a little bit more action on their part, and be consistent. Princess Uni on Trisha versus the Klein says that both Trisha and Ethan were in the wrong when it came to Frenemies ending. Since then, Ethan has been poking the bear while Trisha tried to stay quiet. Princess Uni doesn't agree with Trish going on Keem's podcast and thinks Trisha's responses of all this just because I went on a podcast is similar to Gabby saying all this because I hurt Jesse's feelings years ago. But they don't agree with what Donna said about Hila's baby and thinks that she could come up with better comebacks. I can't wait to go to your wedding. Not. I agree with just about everything that you said. And that's basically what I was saying too about Donna is that like you can make this point. You can even make this point in a way that is firm. I'm all about it. But do it right or else you make yourself look bad and you make your son look bad. You make your family look bad. Make that point. Make that point, girl. Like, go on. Tell Trisha. I am really concerned about what sort of stress you guys are putting on Hila. Cut it out. Stop. Stop engaging in it. And whatever else was the criticism, like, I don't, this was a bad look. Whatever it is you want to do, but just like this is why I say to people, like, just be honest and straightforward about your feelings. Don't try to like come back with quips and clapbacks and sarcasm and this and that. Just say what you're feeling. Like Ethan had it right when he just said, I'm not going to front or play games. I'm just sad. Take a tip from your son. Also, let's see, Madison Roche on a missed opportunity is the topic. What could have been a strong statement about power imbalance and the toxicity of Keemstar simply became a way for Trisha and Ethan to hurt each other. Madison wishes Trish would, this is from, Madison Roche, I think I said that. Madison wishes Trish would prioritize their message over how they can one-up Ethan. As for Donna, Madison thinks she shouldn't have said what she did, but understands she said it in melodramatic anger and out of concern for her son and grandchildren, a noble cause for a nasty statement. Oh, I like that. I'd never heard of that before. Yeah, I think most of us agree on that. And the sad part is that we haven't even said enough. Nobody's really said enough. But it's like, look what Keemstar's doing to this family. Really, who is the bad? Everyone's talking about looking who the bad guy is and like pointing the finger. Who's the real bad guy? I promise you, Keem has enjoyed this at some point. And he does. He talks about stacking W's and flipping off the camera and saying like stay mad and fat implying about Ethan. It's just what are we allowing? What are we allowing? Okay. Somebody on the community tab named Marlena Storga, I hope I pronounced that correctly, said Keemstar is sitting back watching the infighting and laughing like a loon. Yep, he is. Shannon on community tab regarding activism says putting aside the nastiness between Trish and the Kleins, Trisha getting involved with Keem shows how much of their activism was performative. Trisha is always in their own way. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I truly think that it was all performative, but it certainly reads all the same when you can't, like I said, when you cannot stick to your principles when placed in an uncomfortable situation. If you want to stand for something and you're going to choose to put yourself in that uncomfortable situation, you need to be prepared to really stand for it. And you failed to do that, Trisha. So whether it was performative or not, it all reads as performative. And that's unfortunate because you had the opportunity that we didn't want you to take, but you were going to take it anyway, and you could have done better with it. Ione, hello, Ione. Regarding boundaries says, as though Ethan made the right call to drop Trisha, especially with Trisha secretly recording the family, some people know no bounds. As though Ethan made, Ione feels as though Ethan made the right call to drop Trisha, especially with Trisha secretly recording the family. People know no bounds. Yeah, that whole Trisha recording that podcast, which the way that they said it, defended it, was like, we all knew we were being recorded. So I don't know if perhaps it's legal because they consented to be recorded on the podcast. But at this point, somebody needs to just release it, I feel, because Trisha continues to talk about it. And then when Ethan made reference to it and said like, I decided not to put it out because it started going back and forth, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't make us look good. I do trust that Ethan is right. It might not be the truth, but I trust Ethan's read of the situation better than Trisha's because I do see Trisha as one of those people who can get combative and have an argument. And then, other people might walk away from that and be like, that was a fight. That was uncomfortable. That looked bad. It was awkward for everyone, just upsetting for all parties. Right. And I think Trisha might walk away from that and be like, oh, that conversation was fine. And they did make a video in their car afterwards talking about how great of a time they had. And they've told us like every day since that they wish that Ethan would have put out that podcast because it made them look better. But I can believe Ethan when he says that it probably did not make anyone look good because it was just a fight where they wanted to make it be like for the fans of the show. So yeah, definitely. Salazar says, Trisha is 100% the problem. They make numerous videos forcing Ethan to respond, and they would be pissed if Ethan had Gabby on H3, even if they're denying it now. Moses isn't innocent either. He should be defending his sister and brother-in-law and urging Trisha not to take things public. I see a note from the producers. Thank you. I agree with that to some extent. I don't think that anybody's forcing Ethan to respond. I do think that Ethan does like to go for what's going to get views. He's been honest about that. He titles his videos as such. I see Trisha as more the reactionary one. I see Ethan as the one who's, to some extent, everybody wants to respond and just defend themselves. But with Ethan, it's more of a choice. But is Trisha continuing to prompt him? Yeah. Would Trisha be pissed if he engaged with Gabby in any sense? We can't know for sure, but I would say I'm pretty sure that I would say that probably just like Trisha said, he showed me something that would have devastated me, is what Trisha said. Devastated me. And we don't blame you. We don't blame you for feeling that way, but recognize that it's the same thing. In fact, Keemstar is Ethan's one arch nemesis. Gabby is one of yours. And that's not to say that it's any less legitimate what you two have between you. And now at this point, I'm speaking to Trisha about Gabby. But just this is my complaint about Gabby, and I expect better from Trisha. But recognize, give other people what you're asking for yourself. You want Ethan to be respectful of the fact that Gabby so triggers you. Then what about the respect for the fact that Keem triggers Ethan? Yeah, sure. You make your own decisions. You can do what you want. You can go on the podcast. You have the right to. We talked about this last time. You have the right to, but is it right to do? Just like I would not think it's okay of Ethan to bring on Gabby just to talk shit. I didn't think it was okay of Ethan to bring on his mom to compare Trisha to Gabby. I didn't think that was okay. I thought that was petty and gross. And this is going on Keemstar's podcast, especially talking. You could have not mentioned Ethan's name, and you maybe would have had a point, something. But this was bad. This was bad. It was not my favorite moment. Okay, let's wrap this up a little bit. Oh, Logan, hello. Checking out some super chats. Logan says, just wanted to pile on the love. Heart, I love you. I love you too, Logan. Another person that everybody just loves. And Devin, hey, Devin. We're love piling. I'm there. You're wonderful, Devin. And Rihanna Keller says, maybe free money with a positive spin. Maybe not. Who knows? Is that what? Oh, I guess that was probably just a donation without a message. Maybe I need some clarity around that. That's funny though. Oh, okay. Got it. Well, thank you, Rihanna, for your donation, regardless. Oh, okay, guys. This was a heavy one. I just walked into a #WaterGang and and Ashley just randomly showing up at the end of this. Hey, Ashley. I'm supposed to be at trivia right now. We love you, Ashley. We missed you. Ashley's sister just got married. So congrats to the happy couple. But yeah, I think that this has been a pretty heavy one. I'm hoping that the video tomorrow, please attend if you can, live premiere. We'll have a good time there, where I really kind of go through what happened on that podcast, it was a short podcast, and I can get a little bit snippy when talking about Keemstar. So, but let's take a load off for the rest of the night. MK, have not interested in talking about that person. All right. Plus, that person said that I would be punching down in doing so because he is a smaller creator than me. Um, all right, guys. The premiere, it all depends on whether or not I finish editing it. So, if I can get it up by 8, I'll do 8, but it looks like the past couple premieres have been like 9-ish. So, um, I need to check something really quick, I'm told. Is it gonna be really obvious? Is it in my DMs? Nope. What am I looking at? Producer. I have no Twitter on my phone. Is this something I need to look at before we go? I would love it. Oh, that was nothing from you? Wait, who said that then? Oh, I see. Sorry. Okay. You were telling okay, producer Amber was telling people to my accounts. I thought you were saying like check Twitter, check Instagram. I'm like, "Huh, what am I looking for?" Okay. Sorry. This is because my producers are better at knowing how to promote my platforms than than I am. Please, if you haven't followed me on social media, I'm Hello Leash everywhere except for Snapchat. Who cares about Snapchat anymore anyway? If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please hit subscribe. Join us tomorrow for the live streams and just in general these hangouts that we have. They're so much fun. If you enjoy the community here, you can join Patreon and get to know these people even better. We do have a lot of changes coming. They're going to be fun changes, but you can engage more there with me. It's a little bit more intimate. We have weekly Patreon exclusive events. So thank you. Audie just posted a link to the Patreon. It's patreon.com/HelloLeash. I make it easy. It's Hello Leash everywhere. But otherwise, you can stay in the loop with my updates on Instagram. It's instagram.com/HelloLeash. Also Twitter, a little bit more scarce there, but I'm still posting updates like videos on Twitter and now Depop. So it looks like October snapped up the first listing on Depop, but you will see me posting more of some outfits that you've seen in previous videos, like maybe some of those rompers that people loved. We'll put out there. Say Jack, I've already looked for my wiki feed. I'm not famous enough to exist on there yet, regardless of the fact that I've given so much barefoot content. I'm hurt. All right. I'm gonna try to run out and catch my men over at trivia and enjoy a little time with them and get out of the house, which I haven't done in a long time. I love you guys so much. Thank you for going on this emotional journey with me. And I'll talk to you guys up in a lovely dream. You caught me right before the end. #water gang, everyone. I hope you're all gonna pee so good. You'll make it for me, say Jack. I fucking love you. And that's a bap. All right, you guys. I'll see you tomorrow for the live premiere, and we'll talk again next week. I love you. Bye.